Welcome to episode 60 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club, where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So, this is week 3 of From Blood and Ash. And it feels like we're flying through.
Yeah, it definitely, yes.
Yeah. So we're gonna keep up with our theme of Would You Rather questions. And this one's an interesting one. And we've stopped talking about them beforehand because we realized that makes more sense. But I'm just intrigued at what your answer is going to be. But would you rather be locked in a bookstore or a library?
I feel like I feel like all of my answers are. It sort of depends. Yeah. It's my answer for everything. So the only problem I find with being locked in a library, I love my public library. Mm-hmm. However, we are, and I think you can say this across the board in most places. Like, I don't think it's an issue just where we are. Mm-hmm. Public libraries are criminally underfunded.
Yes.
Therefore, generally, most of the things that I want to read, I have read when they're in the library.
Yeah.
Whereas in a bookstore, the new things are there, along with some of the classics.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where I would lean to, is going to a bookstore. However, then I have to ask, well, can I treat it like a library until I'm unlocked?
Yeah. That's the worry.
Right? Or am I if I crack open a book, am I required to purchase it?
Yes. That's the worry. All I can think about is, for some reason, I have grubby little hands and I'm pawing on the brand new books, and they're going to be like, you need to buy every one you touch.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I can't afford that shit as much as I would like to.
Exactly.
There's no way that I could literally just go into a regular bookstore and be like, I want this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and then just wait by the checkout until I'm unlocked.
Yeah.
I remember doing it. A bookstore opened here when I was in intermediate, 7th or 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And it had a coffee shop in it. And I remember taking a book, not paying for it, and just bringing it to the coffee shop and just treating it like a library and reading the book. Mm-hmm. And my parents dropped me off there to hang out with a friend, and we just sat there and read a book together.
Yeah.
Not a book. She read her own book.
Yes.
I read my own book. We just sat at the table drinking hot chocolates or something. And I got through, I would say, 3/4 of that book. Yeah. By the time my parents picked me up. So I essentially did treat it like a library. But then I was like, oh, I kind of want to finish this book. So I purchased it.
Yeah.
But if I'm locked in a library for if I'm locked in a bookstore for 12 hours? Mm-hmm. I'll get through a couple of books.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to buy them.
It's true.
So I think that's my answer.
Yeah. That's fair. I feel like it feels more illegal to be locked in a bookstore than it does to be locked in a library. You know what I mean? A bookstore, it just seems
illegal for who? Illegal for the people
malicious.
To have locked you in, or
no,
illegal for you to be in there?
Illegal for you to be there. It feels more malicious. I think it would be harder to get locked in a bookstore than it would be to get locked in a library. I don't know why.
But why would you try? Would you try? Is this something you would want to do?
Well, how else would you be locked in one if you weren't trying to be locked in? Most stores are we're closing in 15 minutes. So I feel like it'd be hard to get locked in if you weren't actively trying to get locked in.
I guess I'm thinking Night at the Museum sort of a thing, just accidentally getting locked in there. That's what I think. I'm not thinking of doing it on purpose.
That's fair. Yeah,
Although it'd be fun to have the run of the place when there's no one else there.
Well, I used to work at the thing about bookstores is, too, I used to work at a bookstore earlier mornings restocking books before they opened, but I'd get there at like 4. So like if you're locked in a bookstore, it's not even that long because people get there at 4 a.m. and they're restocking books. So you'd get out pretty fast, which may not be a bad thing.
No, you could just like tease your hair and like muss up your clothes and be like, I've been locked in here for ages. I didn't do this on purpose.
Yeah, they're like, we closed at 10 p.m. It's only been 6 hours, ma'am. You would spend 6 hours here if it was opened. Yeah.
Yeah, but you would have had to pack a lunch or something, so you weren't hungry.
They have snacks. Just eat everything.
Just like leave a trail of wrappers.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. I think bookstore's the answer, but mostly because of what you said. Like any new releases that you want to read in a library, they're already lent out, and there's wait lists on them, so they're not going to be there unless you like look through the returns as people are bringing them in.
Like pouncing on the return pile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. This was one of the most decisive would you rathers we've ever had.
It is. Yeah. Oh, the other thing though about a library is like if you were to go somewhere else that has like beautiful libraries that are like historical and just for the looking around, not for the reading the books, just for the like point. Just for looking at the beauty.
How very dare you?
I know. You've like
put a wrench in this whole situation.
Yeah, because you just said it was decisive, so I had to stab it in there.
Yeah, you're right. If we're talking like not just an underfunded local library that's like dingy and a bit shabby, and we're talking like a grand library that's like hundreds of years old and has like shelves up to the wazoo and you have to like climb ladders in order to get things, I would totally rather be locked in there just to explore.
Yeah, I don't even think I would read anything. I would just go around and look at everything and be like, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. I would look for things just for the sake of looking for them. Yeah. I'd be like, what's a really obscure book? Oh, I'm going to go in the stacks and look now. Yeah. Like, just for the fun of looking through the stacks. That was, like, the best part of university is going to the library and having to look through the stacks for things. That was, like, the funnest.
I didn't do that, but...
Oh, my God.
I had a math degree. I didn't have to research in the library.
I mean, technically, I didn't either because everything was online. But, like, I chose to.
That's fair.
Because I liked the stacks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So, just a heads up, everyone. We're not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get a little saucy.
This week is week 3, and we are reading chapters 22 to 32 of From Blood and Ash by JLA, Jennifer L Armentrout. So last week, we sort of get a little bit more into, Poppy's life, I guess we'll say. Hawke is officially named one of, Poppy's new personal guards. Because of that rule, or because of that new, I guess, promotion, we'll call it, there is an unveiling where Poppy shows Hawke her face. They get a little bit closer, we'll say. Like, he talks to her like she's a person and not just a maiden. We see a little bit more of her routine and sort of like her lessons, we'll say, both with the priestess who tries to hit her and the Duke and the Lord who, I guess, abuse her with the cane. And yeah, we end the section last week with Hawke learning who she is, learning that she is a capable fighter, with a Craven attack, and with sort of more dissenters making themselves known in the city. And the end of last week, Poppy sneaks to a library to get a dirty book, I'm calling it. It's a diary about this woman who has like a really explicit sexual life, and she writes about it, and Poppy wants to read about it. And she ends up on a windowsill listening in on the Duke's conversation, and then Hawke finds her afterwards. They are having like a moment, and she thinks he's gonna kiss her, and that's where we ended off last week. This week, we're literally at the part where Poppy is like waiting for him to kiss her. Like, you know, her face is up, her eyes are sort of closed. She's like expecting something, which I find such an awkward position to be in. Yeah. Like eyes closed, like lips sort of puckered a little bit. Like that is, I hate it.
Yeah.
Instead of kissing her, though, he sort of leans forward and whispers in her ear and asks, "How did you get out of your room?"
So sexy.
Yeah. So she sort of realizes, shit, he's trying to distract me and trying to, like, turn me on and, like, get me all hot and bothered so that I'll answer him. And that makes her feel stupid. So she, like, sort of steps away from him. But even though she gets it and she understands she understands what he was trying to do and how he was sort of trying to manipulate her, she still tells him. Like, if that were me, I would have kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, 100%.
But she doesn't. She tells him that there's, like, a servant's access in her room and that it brings her out onto the main floor. And if she's not wearing her white and her veil, nobody knows who she is. So as long as she just goes out with, like, a regular mask on and maybe a cloak and, like, a pair of pants, then she's just, everyone dismisses her and, like, doesn't really know who she is.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like, there's servant's access in your room, like, shit. And he's concerned because obviously somebody's trying to kidnap her, and having a secret door go into your room might not be the best.
It's true. He's got a point.
Like, and he does. And she's like, oh no, it locks from the inside. So, like, she locks it herself so that nobody can come into her room. But, like, I feel like if they can, like, I don't know, get through a castle or, like, get close enough to shoot someone, I just feel like a door is the least of their problems.
Yes. I just think, like, there's always somebody outside of her door, so if someone was trying to break into this door, she could probably scream and get their attention.
Yeah.
But still, it, like, Hawke should know about it. Because
But does Vikter? Yes, Vikter knows
about it. Because he takes her through there sometimes.
Right. Anyway, so he's sort of like, you know, this is something I should know. And she's like, listen, if somebody tries to break in, like, because it locks from the inside, it'll take them a few minutes. So by the time they get in, I'll be ready. And he's like, oh, yeah, with your dagger. And she's like, yeah, with my dagger. And then he calls her violent again. And this is a reoccurring theme. It's sort of repetitive. He calls her violent over and over again. And he likes it.
It's true.
Anyway, so he's still sort of pissed at her that she snuck out without telling anyone, considering she's, like, sort of in a constant state of danger at this point because there are these, like, threats against her that they haven't really uncovered. And, like, she just sort of didn't think of that and just was like, I'm gonna go to the library. So he sort of thinks that she doesn't have any concern for her own well-being. I mean,
it's not necessarily wrong.
No, but I also feel like she left because she was feeling really stifled. And, like, if you were sort of kept in your room for hours and hours and hours on end by yourself, like, and you knew you had a means of escape and you knew that no one would recognize you, man, I'd be out too. I'd be gone.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, I feel like he's like, oh, you're not being safe. But at the same time, I feel like he of all people, because he's been the one that sort of recognizes how difficult her situation is, I feel like he should understand that.
Yeah, I get that.
Anyway, so she sort of asked, like, how did you even notice I was gone? Like, you were way outside the door. And he said he actually came into her room to hang out with her, since he was outside her room and she was in her room all alone. So he came in to, like, knock and see if she wanted company, which is sweet.
Sweet, but illegal.
Yeah. And again, she was really surprised about it because she said not even Vikter would do that. Which is another point against Vikter, by the way. I said last week that I wasn't impressed with him, and I'm still not. And he does not redeem himself for me. Like, a little bit, but not a lot. Not enough.
I get that.
Anyway, so apparently the guards are not allowed to do that. And Vikter does not cross that line. Apparently it breeds too much familiarity between the maiden and the guard, which is ridiculous. But anyway. He then asks, like, how did you end up on the ledge? What happened? And she tells him, and then she tells him about the conversation she heard from the Duke and between the Duke and she thinks it's like a guard in the prison or something like that, is because we didn't really name them last week, and she doesn't give them a name either. It's just some rando. And then she tells him that she thinks the Duke is going to kill the dissenter, the one who interrupted the speech and threw the Craven hand up towards the Duke and the Duchess. And she's not comfortable with it. And Hawke is sort of asking her and, like, trying to broach the topic and be like, why? Why is this not sitting well with you? Like, would you rather a public execution? Like, where everybody can see? Yeah. And she says that that's not it. It's not that. But she says that, like, the way that they're doing it, there's not going to be a trial, which actually is not her problem. The fact that there will be no trial. But she says that the way that he's doing it is, like, he's trying to keep it hidden. Like, he's trying to keep it a secret. Which, in my mind, only lends credence to everything he was saying. Yeah. Like, she is really outraged at what he said, and she continues to be outraged, right? Like, this is something, and we sort of learn a bit more about what the guy was saying a little bit later. But the fact that they're doing it in secret, in my mind, should sort of key into her that maybe what he was saying wasn't entirely wrong. So, I don't know. In the end, they end up, like, just changing the subject, and he instead checks out the diary that she found, and, like, it's really, like, it's dirty and scandalous. And he, like, tries to embarrass her, so he reads parts of it out loud. Which is really funny.
I would die.
I would also die. Like, 1,000,000% I would decease.
Yeah, same.
They end up on the topic of love because they're talking about this. And she's like, I don't think it's love. Well, so, yeah, because she's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with me reading about love. And he's like, I don't think this is love. Anyway, they chat, and she's like, she reveals, obviously, she's never been in love. And he actually reveals that he has. And that the person was from his home. And it was a long, long time ago. And she just sort of finds it odd that he describes it that way, as a long, long time ago, because he's only a few years older than her. Yeah. So she's sort of like, that's interesting. he reads a couple more passages out loud again to sort of like embarrass her again and change the subject again. And then they end up heading back to the castle. And that's the end of that interaction. Like, we don't get the drop off or anything like that. They just go back. And she gets to take the diary with her. He says he wants like a chapter by chapter summary each day.
Oh my God. So awkward.
But funny. Can you imagine being like, okay, so in this scene.
No, I can't.
Stop. I mean, we're doing it sort of now, but like.
It's not a book just about sex.
No, it's not like we have like the Kama Sutra out and we're like, okay, so this position.
Yeah. Which is exactly what it kind of seems like. The little tidbits we get about the book. Like, yeah, and how she learned how to do anything she does later on.
Well, yeah, because the book follows them throughout the next, at least from what I remember, at least the next one book, like the second book in the series. Like,
yeah.
The book goes with her.
Yeah.
And it's brought up more than once. So yeah. It's an important piece.
It is.
Anyway, so later, not sure how much time later, whether it's the same day, the next day, whatever, Poppy and Tawny are getting ready for the Rite. So it's the big party.
We've been hearing about the whole book.
Yeah, and it actually, this feels like sort of the climax, I want to say, of the book, but it's like in the middle of the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's anyway.
It's interesting.
Take from that what you will. So she's nervous because she's going out in public. She's allowed to go to the Rite when normally she's not allowed to like talk to anybody. And she's always dressed in white, but tonight she's allowed to wear red.
Ooh.
Yes, red is a sexy color.
It is.
She's also allowed to go out without her veil on. She's just going to wear a mask, the same way everybody else is wearing a mask. So I'm not sure if red is exclusive, because I think there are other people that are allowed, like people are dressed in various shades of red and black, I think.
Yeah, I felt like everyone was wearing red. I didn't think like it was a just her thing.
No, but like, so she's just going to blend in with the crowd, essentially. So everybody is wearing like red-black combo, and everybody's going to have a mask on.
Mm-hmm.
They're all obsessed with masks.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, she's also allowed to finally wear makeup, which is wild, because normally her skin must remain pure.
But for some reason, she's allowed to tonight. They're just like, throw the rules away for one night.
But no, not all the rules. Not all of them.
No, that's true.
Anyway, but she's nervous because Hawke is going to get to see her in the dress. And that's primarily why she's nervous.
Apparently the dress is scandalous, it seems like.
I think it is for her. Like, it shows her clavicle, which is wild for her, because normally everything goes, like, up to her neck.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's showing clavicle, and I think it said that the sleeves are see-through.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they're still there, and they're still red, but they're, like, you could see through. So I think for her, it's a decently scandalous, but I don't know if it's scandalous for everyone else.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway, so she leaves her room, and the only one waiting for her is Vikter, and she's sort of disappointed. But, you know, he does his due diligence and says, oh, you look pretty. And apparently Hawke had to meet with the commander about something, and will meet them later. So Poppy goes in, and she says there's like so many people at the Rite. Essentially, everybody is there to give up their third baby.
Third and fourth, yeah.
Third and fourth, yes. And I'm assuming the second-borns that are 13 as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
I find it hard to understand, like, so is this Rite once a year, in which case it's all the babies that were born in that year? So, like, for example, the Tuleys, did they only have their baby for a month, whereas some other families have their baby for almost a year? Like, that part is never explained.
No, it's not.
And we have no answers.
It's confusing to me.
Yeah, anyway. But yeah, so like all of the commoners are there giving up their babies. So they're all there. Plus all the lords and ladies and like the nobility, all the ascended are there. Like everyone is just hanging around. Mm-hmm. And Poppy is finally like getting excited because nobody is looking at her. They're all looking past her. So tonight she's finally realizing she's not the maiden. She's just her. She sees the Duchess up on the dais, and like the priests and the priestesses accepting the babies and like going through all that. And one of the Duke's guards is up there talking to the Duchess, but the Duke is not there. So she's sort of like, oh, he's missing the rite. Like, that's weird.
Very weird.
Yes. So I guess they're watching the procession, and it's sort of treated like a religious ceremony almost. Like there's prayers, there's ceremony, there's like things that you must do and must not do, and it's sort of the boring part of the evening.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, somebody saunters up behind her and greets her. And it's not Hawke. It's Lord Mazeen.
Oh, even worse.
Yes. And she's like, shit, he's the last person I want to talk to other than the Duke.
Yeah.
And the first thing he does is, and he is a certified moron. Like, and I will get into it why a bit later, but he is a certified moron. He immediately taunts her about the incident with the priestess. So, like, if you don't remember last week, she was reading a book out loud and she questions some things to the priestess, and the priestess is going to hit her in the face, and Hawke stops her and essentially threatens her and says, like, if you harm her, I'll harm you. And Poppy knows that the priestess is going to talk to the Duke, and the Duke is going to give her a lesson, which Lord Mazeen is super excited about because he's sick sadistic bastard.
Yes.
Anyway, he essentially insinuates that she's going to get another lesson. Like, he taunts her about it. And he's like leaning in to whisper, like sounds like someone's in for another lesson. And he's like whispering it in her ear, which is gross. And she gets a whiff of jasmine, which doesn't immediately seem important, but then he leaves, and she remembers that the day that the girl Melissa, again, was from like a few days ago, she was killed and drained of blood with the puncture marks. So she was drained of blood, and she was carrying jasmine around. She had fresh flowers, and the room she was killed in smelled of jasmine. And then she remembers that Lord Mazeen had been in the same area because he like accosted her immediately and like went into like this alcove with her. And she thinks, well, maybe he was the one that was with her right before she was killed, because it was shown sort of that this girl Melissa was having sex before she died.
Yeah.
But she's like, oh, he obviously didn't kill her though, because that was an Atlantean because of the puncture marks. So like, I just want to shake her a little bit and be like, how not, like, I know she can be extreme. She's extremely naive because she hasn't had a chance to live, but like, really? Yeah. The guy's a creepazoid. You can sort of put him in the room with the girl right before she died, and yet you still can't figure out, like, you're still like, oh, he couldn't have killed her. Couldn't he have?
Yeah. Probably could have.
Probably could have. Anyway. Agnes, the lady that they helped week 1 with her husband, who was cursed, she's at the Rite, hanging out. And she comes up behind Vikter and Poppy and asks to speak with them privately. And originally she did want to speak to Poppy one-on-one, but Vikter's like, no way in hell, like, not happening. So
not
she
surprising.
essentially, right? It's like, what? My personal guard, and you're okay with leaving me alone? Yeah, sure. Yeah. But yeah, no, he was not okay with it. So she just wanted to thank them both for what they did for her. And she tells Poppy, like, I've heard rumors that the Dark One is trying to get to you. And I just wanted you to be safe. So, like, I'm just letting you know that I heard those rumors. And Poppy's sort of like, this is old news, but thank you. Like, doesn't say that, but she's thinking that, like, man, we've known this for weeks. But, like, oh, yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah.
And Vikter sort of, like, thinks something's up. And he's like, is there something you're not telling us? And she's like, no. I just want her to be safe. And okay, bye, enjoy the ride. And she, like, wanders off, and it's sort of like, okay, crazy lady, like, she's totally sus.
Yeah, very. You're like, what is happening?
Yeah. So they say goodbye to the sussy lady. And finally, Hawke shows up. And Poppy thinks he looks hot as fuck.
He probably does.
Yeah, I mean, he tells Poppy and Tawny that they both look beautiful.
Which is sweet.
It is sweet. I like that he includes Tawny.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Vikter's like, oh, if you're here, I'm going to run and talk to the commander about something. So Tawny, Hawke, and Poppy sort of discuss the Rite so far and what's happened. All the babies have been presented, and they're sort of called by name, like a procession. Mm-hmm. Sort of what you would feel like at a ball when, like, the ladies, like on Bridgerton, when they're like called, like, Miss Daphne Bridgerton, escorted by her mother, the Dowager Viscountess Bridgerton, and then they come in. It's like that, but for babies.
I was thinking more like communion, or like your first communion or something, if you're like religious.
Oh, maybe it's that.
But
okay. Well, whatever.
What
anyway, so all the babies had already been presented, but Poppy mentions that she didn't hear the Toolies' name.
Interesting.
Yes, the Toolies, that family that were with little baby Tobias that they didn't want to give up when they should have.
They should have?
Well, not that they should have in terms of I agree with it. I'm saying they should have in terms of legalities. They were supposed to. And Poppy's sort of like, shit, if they purposefully did not come, they're going to go to jail.
Yeah.
And, like, if they tried to escape, they're going to send out word to all the neighboring villages and towns, and everyone's going to be looking for them. Like, there will be no escape. Like, they cannot let even one baby free.
Yeah.
So that's just a little tidbit for you to mull over.
Think about that.
Yeah, think about that for a bit. The Duchess, like, I guess the procession-y bit is over, so the Duchess approaches Poppy and is like, oh, you look lovely, but P.S., you're not allowed to mingle or socialize.
Why is she there? I just don't understand why she's even there if she's not allowed to do anything.
Well, I guess she got to wear makeup and dress up in a pretty dress, and she gets to see it. Like,
yeah,
that's about it. Anyway, I guess Poppy asks, like, where's the Duke? Like, he's not here. And she's like, oh, he's just running late. It's fine. And it's like, oh, okay. And then she moves on. Hawke does something funny. After he leaves, he says, so you're not allowed to mingle or socialize. And he says, those are the same thing, by the way. But then he says, like, why are you even here? Why are they allowing you to come if you're not allowed to talk to anybody?
Yeah.
And they made the point that you just made.
Yes.
Like, valid points.
Yeah.
I say that they're hugging the wall. That's how I describe it. They're like the wallflowers. Like, they're standing on the edge. Because Poppy's not allowed to mingle or socialize. So she can't go on the dance floor or, like, she can't go out into the crowd, so she's just standing there.
Yeah.
And she sees Tawny, like, sort of gazing longingly out there at all of her friends, and she, like, can't even go out and party.
Yeah.
So Poppy's like, just go. I'm fine. I'm tired. I'm going to go back to my room. Like, you can go. Go out and have fun. And Tawny's like, oh, are you sure? And Poppy's like, yeah, I'm sure. Like, go ahead. Like, why should you be stuck here with me?
Yeah.
And which is actually very nice.
It is, yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't know if I would have, like, if Tawny was really her friend, I don't know, like, if that were you and I,
yes,
I don't think I would have done that.
No.
I don't think I would have left you there on the side. Especially if you were like, oh, I think I'm going to go back to my room. And I'm like, we literally just got here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I guess, like, if you're not allowed to do anything, I can see being like, I may as well just go to my room and read.
I guess, but, like, you could, like, she's not allowed to mingle or socialize, but, like, she can mingle or socialize with her. Like, all Tawny did by leaving was make it so there was one less person she was allowed to talk to.
Yeah, that's true. Like,
she was allowed to talk to 2, maybe 3 people in that room. Mm-hmm. And Tawny just was like, psych, peace out.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I getcha.
Anyway, so Hawke sort of, after Tawny, like, goes over to her friends, Hawke's like, you know, that was really nice of you to do that. And she's like, I guess let's just go back to my room. And she's like, I'm tired. And he's like, you're lying. Don't lie. Like, I know you're not tired. I know you don't actually want to go back to your room. So let's go somewhere else. And she's sort of like, I'm not allowed. Remember?
Not allowed to do anything at all, sir.
Yeah. So he sort of suggests they go out to the courtyard because she hasn't really been out there since Rylan died, and she doesn't like it anymore, even though it used to be, like, her favorite place. Mm-hmm. So he suggests that they go face it and replace the tragic memory with new good memories. He also tells her, he was like, I couldn't tell you, but he was like, when I called you beautiful before, he was like, I didn't mean it. What I meant to say, which is sort of like a, you didn't mean it.
Yeah.
That's so mean. But he was like, what I meant to say was, you look absolutely exquisite. Ugh. I don't actually hate it. I actually love it. It's very nice. But, like, saying it out loud is sort of like, heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. It's also like, I don't think the delivery was necessary. It's almost like negging someone. You know what I mean? Like, especially since she already has such low self-esteem because of the Duke. I'm like, it just seems mean to say it like that.
Yeah. No, you're right.
But it was like a really, really low for a second, and then a really, really high. So I can see it, like, feeling good. But it does feel a bit like negging.
Yeah. Anyway, so she finally wants she wants to finally, like, live. She's like, this is really, like, my one night of somewhat freedom. So she's like, sure. And she also, like, she talks about how she feels sometimes very alone. Like, she says when Vikter or Tawny are with her, like, she knows they care about her, and it doesn't take away from the fact that she knows they care about her. But she says that, like, sometimes it feels like they're not present when they're with her. Like, they're thinking of other things. They're thinking about their quote unquote real lives.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, she means something to them, but she's still just a job. Like, they're getting paid to be with her. Yeah. So, like, she says she feels like sometimes, like, she can sense that they're not there with her. But she says with Hawke, it's not like that. Like, he doesn't behave that way. Like, it seems like he genuinely enjoys being around her and wants to engage with her. Yeah. So, anyway, it's just cute.
Yeah, it makes him seem even sweeter.
But it also is sad. And it's another cross X out for Vikter.
Yeah, I get that.
In my mind. Anyway, so they head out into the garden. And Hawke, like, reveals that one of the last places that he saw his brother was in one of his favorite places. And she's sort of like, whoa, what? You're talking about this? Because she knows talking about his brother gives him a lot of pain. And she's finds it odd that he's offering up this information willingly. So he explains that it was a series of like caverns in his hometown that like very few people had the courage to actually explore in full. And they're like really twisty and windy. But him and his brother and another one of their friends, they did it one day. And at the end, they found this like warm, bubbling blue pool. And she was like, oh, like a hot spring. And he's like, no, not like hot spring. He was like, the water where I'm from is not comparable. It's absolutely like beautiful and amazing. He was like, I can't compare it to anything here. And I'm like, what kind of water is this? Like, it's water.
Right? Why is it 1,000 times better?
How is it better than normal water?
I don't get it.
Anyway, but yeah. She asked, like, oh, well, then where are you from? Like, I've never heard of this. And he's like, oh, it's a little village you've probably never heard of. Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then he says that he lost his brother shortly after the last time he was at the cave. And then the best friend that went with them, he lost that person a few years later. So he says that he couldn't go back to that cave for a really long time. And she's like, have you started making new memories there? And he's like, not yet. Like, haven't had a chance.
Yeah. Because I guess he shortly after came to Macedonia.
Yeah. So then she speaks about how she feels lucky that she was so young when her parents died, because the memories are so faint. It's like there's a detachment. Like, she doesn't actively miss them because she, like, it doesn't feel like it's her. But she says her brother, like, it's harder for him because he had those memories. I think he's 2 years older than her. So, like,
something like that.
He has the memories. So for him, it's a little different. But she talks about how much she misses him because he's been gone. She hasn't seen him in, like, was it 2 years?
I almost thought that she hadn't seen him since she went to Macedonia and he stayed in the capital. But I don't know if that's true.
I think she just, when he ascended, she never saw him after.
Yeah, she definitely hasn't seen him since he ascended.
But he still, like, writes her letters and stuff. They're, like, walking through the garden at this point and they're holding hands, which for her is, like, huge because it's a form of physical contact that she's, again, not allowed to have.
Yeah. She's so crazy.
Right? They head to his favorite place because she's not ready to go to her favorite place near the night blooming roses because that is the exact spot where Ryland died. So they go to his favorite place, which is this huge weeping willow. And they go inside. And there's like there's like a bench there. I feel like we don't have those types of trees here.
No.
Not to that extent where you could, like, go inside and hide from people.
Yeah.
Like, apparently it's so weepy and drapey that, like, you could go in and then no one can see you.
Yeah.
So, it'd be cool if we could have some. I think that'd be neat. Although I feel like there'd be bugs everywhere.
That's true. I agree.
I wouldn't like that. So, they sit on a bench underneath the weeping willow. It's pitch black and she can't see. Obviously it's pitch black, but for some reason he can see, which is breadcrumbing.
Sus.
Yes. So he's like, here, sit down. And then instead of hauling her onto the bench next to him, he hauls her onto his lap.
Of course.
So they playfully argue a little bit about how it's inappropriate for her to be in this position with him. And she reminds him, like, this is not allowed. Like, I'm the maiden. And he says that he doesn't care, that he cares who she is, not what she is, which is amazing.
Yes.
Like, point to Hawke.
Yeah.
And they sort of get a bit more serious, and she says to him, like, your interest in me doesn't make sense. because you can have any number of willing participants, but like she makes up a word here and she says, I'm unhavable. Like she wants to know why he's with her. He could be with anyone else. Why is he choosing to be with some he's not allowed to be with?
Yeah.
And like he's trying to make a connection with her when he's not allowed to have that connection. And maybe this one night they could have, but that's it.
Yeah.
And she says, like, it doesn't matter what I want, even though, like, I would want this. She's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not allowed.
Yeah.
And he sort of says, like, it does matter. Like, what you want matters. Which, again, is like, oh.
Yeah. And no one's ever said it to her.
No one has ever said it to her. He says that his only answer to her question of, like, why are you here? Why do you even want to be with me? His response is, you intrigue me. Which is just so weak.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? You intrigue me. That, to me, that's a non-answer. That's not good enough.
No.
Like, what they are doing is highly illegal. You need something better.
Yeah. I need a bit more reassurance here than I'm intrigued.
So they have this, like, tender moment. He, like, brushes her face and, like, runs his hand down her neck and, like, across her clavicle since it's showing. And he says that he should bring her back to her room. He's like, I should be good and bring you back to your room. And she just says instead, kiss me.
Ooh.
Which he does.
Good.
He says, you don't have to ask me twice.
Which I like.
Yeah. So apparently it starts out really like light and easy and like soft. And then he changes the angle of the kiss. And all of a sudden they go wild. And they're like making out hardcore. And all of a sudden she's straddling him. And like, I don't think her dress is like layers upon layers upon layers. I think it's like 1 to 2 layers maybe. So like, it's like, she thin. So like, her leg, like, she can feel all him through. Listen, that is a quote. That is not me.
I know. From Imagine. Oh,
so she can feel all of him.
Mm-hmm.
So like they do it for a while and then he stops and he admits that if they keep going, he's just going to take her on the ground. And she's sort of like, I yes, okay. I wouldn't mind. Yeah. She doesn't actually say like, yes, let's do it. She's sort of like, if we kept going, I would have let you. So like he's being responsible and like he knows that he needs to be the guard. He needs to be the responsible one and like take her back to her room right now. But they stay there in the exact same position and cuddle for a while.
No.
Yeah, I guess I feel like the way I look at it is like she's like her arms are wrapped around his head and he's like using her boobs as pillows.
Yeah.
So anyway, they end up getting up and he takes her back into her room where Vikter intercepts them and he is hella pissed. He says that he can tell that they were like getting busy. And I mean, you totally canoodling, yes.
Yes,
but
no,
like
100%.
100% valid, because I'm sorry, you can totally tell after you've been making out with someone for a while, especially when it's like hard and rough kissing.
Yeah.
Kissing only. You can tell.
Yeah.
Like the bruised lips thing, I feel like is actually valid.
Yeah, I get it.
And like, when your hair is a little bit mussed and like you got like a sparkle in your eye, like,
You look like you were doing something bad when your guard catches you.
Anyway, so yeah, he can tell they're getting better. So then he says, and I hate it so much, he says, it's time to go back to your room, maiden.
Yeah.
Which, I would have slapped him.
Except for you would have gotten in so much trouble if you slapped him.
I know.
Because you're the maiden.
I know. Anyway, so he reminds Hawke what she is. And then Hawke, like, comes right back to him and says, like, I know, he was like, I guess Vikter's sort of like, do you, like, are you aware? Like, do you forget what she is? Yeah. And Hawke's like, no, I know exactly who she is. And then he even says that she's not just an inanimate object to serve the kingdom. Like, she's a person.
Good point.
100% valid. And then Vikter asks, oh, so is she just another notch in your bedpost? Like, she's the ultimate challenge? Is that what this is about? And Hawke gets really close to him and gets really murderous and says, like, be careful what you say. Like, I appreciate you're trying to protect her, but, like, where you're going is completely invalid. Not true at all. And he was like, I would hate for something bad to happen to you.
I don't know why he says that. That seems a bit far.
Yeah. And then he said, then he also said, like, I would hate for Poppy to be unhappy if you got hurt. So, like, he's very threatening.
Yeah.
Like, he is, like, and it's like that killer calm sort of mad. Like, he's very calm. And Poppy's just sort of like, guys, give it up, give it up, give it up. In the middle, and they're just, like, locking eyes with each other. And Vikter's like, you'll never be alone with her again over my dead body. And Hawke is like, yeah, well, I would hate for you to get hurt. Like,
hate to have to kill you. Yeah. Like, what is happening? You can't just say that.
Anyway, Vikter, like, dismisses him for the night. He's like, just get out of my sight, essentially. Then Vikter starts to lecture Poppy. And, like, what are you thinking? And she essentially takes the blame for everything. She was like, she just says, like, he was just trying to help me get over what happened in the courtyard with Rylan. Like, he knows I hadn't been out there. And she was, like, explaining all that. And he was like, how did that turn into what it was? And she said, well, I asked him to kiss me. And he's sort of, like, saying, like, okay, you shouldn't have asked. But at the same time, he was way too willing to do it. Like, he should have said no. And Poppy sort of explodes. And I have to read, actually. I'm going to do a reading from the text. Because she essentially goes off on Vikter. And it almost gives me the satisfaction I want. But not quite.
Okay.
So she essentially says, like, so he's like, she says, like, that's not the point. The fact that she asked and he did it for her. And he said, that is the point. And she said, no, it's not. He's not the damn point. And she said, this whole stupid thing is the point. The fact that I can't do anything is the point. That I can't have one night to do something normal and fun and enjoyable. That I can't experience anything without being warned to remember what I am. That every privilege you have, and Tawny has, and everyone else has, I don't have. And then she said, I have nothing. And then his expression softens and he says, Poppy. And to me, that's so fucking condescending. I would have lit, like, ugh. But then she keeps going. She says, no, you don't understand. I can't celebrate my birthdays because that's ungodly. I'm not allowed to go to picnics or to supper with others because I'm the maiden. I'm not allowed to defend myself because that would be unseemly. I don't even know how to ride a horse. Nearly every book is forbidden to me. I can't socialize or make friends because my sole purpose is to serve the kingdom by going to the gods, something no one will even explain. And she says, I don't even know if I'll have a future beyond my ascension. In less than a year or even sooner, I may lose every chance I have to do everything everyone else takes for granted. I have no life. And then she said, everything has been taken from me. My free will, my choice, my future. And I still have to suffer through the Duke's lessons. I still have to stand there and let him hit me. Let him look at me and touch me. Do whatever he or the Lord wants. I have to stand there and take it. I can't even scream or cry. I can do nothing. So I'm sorry that choosing something that I want for myself is such a disappointment to you, the kingdom, everyone else, and the gods. Where is the honor in being the maiden? What exactly should I be proud of? Who would want this? Point me in their direction and I'll gladly switch places with them. It should be no shock that I want to be found unworthy. And, like, I love that she finally, like, admits that. And finally, like Vikter sees her life. I don't understand how he has not noticed this before.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, out of everyone, she's like a daughter to him. He should see how awful her life is.
Yeah.
And yet he's, like, so, like, shocked at all this. Like, what? I never even thought about any of this. Like, dude, you're a moron. Mm-hmm. Like, So, like, I love that she claps back at him. But, like, it's not enough to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what would be enough, but this is not it.
It's something, though.
Yeah, I guess.
That's all you're gonna get.
It is all I'm gonna get.
Sorry, dude.
Anyway, so she's like, I want to go back to my room. So she just starts walking to her room, and he does follow her because, again, he's her guard. He has to. And they pass by the Great Hall or the ballroom where everything was going on, and all of a sudden, people scream and start coming out the door. And they're, like, screaming and vomiting, and, like, they're all shocked. And she's like, what is going on in there? And she knows...
a bit much.
Yeah, she's like, what is happening? It's like, this is weird for a Rite. So she knows that Tawny is in there, and she's like, shit, I gotta go in for Tawny. So she goes in, and she sees what all the commotion is. The Duke is hanging from the ceiling from ropes with the cane he hit her with right through his chest.
Hey.
He's dead, obviously.
Yes.
And above him on, like, a banner is written, from blood and ash we will rise. Lovely. Yay, the Duke is dead.
Yeah, that part is ideal.
So Poppy is, like, sort of looking at it, and she's thinking about it logically. Like, she knows that it would take Atlantean strength to stab him with the cane because it wasn't, like, sharp. It was smooth. Yeah. And it wasn't pointy. And she's like, I should be terrified knowing there's an Atlantean loose in the castle right now. But she's like, I'm happy he's dead.
Yeah, which is completely fair.
Yeah. She's like, no more lessons. And it also means that Lord Mazeen holds no sway over her anymore. Mm-hmm. So they find Tawny, and they're all about to go back to Poppy's room, when all of a sudden the windows in the ballroom all shatter and spray out and hit a bunch of people. And Tawny's two friends, the girls that were talking about the diary in the little, like, solarium room, Lauren and Dafina are hit. And Lauren just has, like, scratches all over her face and, like, her hands and stuff. But Dafina was hit in the eye with a big shard of glass.
It doesn't sound very good.
It does not sound fun. And Tawny wants to, like, go to them, but Poppy's like, no way. Like, you need to stay here with me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden then, arrows start flying through the windows, and people start to die. Yeah. And then they go to leave the Great Hall, and all of a sudden, people that had left to go out into the hallway because they didn't like seeing the Duke, like, strung up, they all start, like, rushing back in. So they're being attacked from, like, both fronts. So, like, they're being attacked from the windows, and they're being attacked from the main hallway. People are, like, hurting them all back in the Great Hall.
Very much a mob of people.
Very much a mob, yeah. So Vikter then all of a sudden yells, like, protect the maiden! So then Poppy, like, hugs Tawny really, really tightly so they can't separate the two of them. And then I guess they form, like, a barricade around the two of them. And, like, it's sort of mosh pity. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And, like, I guess Vikter ends up getting dragged away, and then the barricade breaks, and then Tawny is carried away by the swarm of people, and then, like, Poppy falls on the floor, and, like, she's getting stepped on, she's getting kicked, she's getting, like, trampled. So, like, she starts crawling to try and get out of the way. She ends up finding Lauren curled up next to Dafina's body. Obviously, Dafina is no longer with us.
Yeah,
she dead.
Sad.
She real dead.
Yeah.
But, like, I wonder, is there an incident where you get stabbed in the eye with glass? Like, is there any way you could come out of that?
Yeah.
You think?
It depends how far back it goes, right? Because, like, you can lose an eye. Like,
I suppose.
My uncle lost his eye in an workplace accident and lived. But yeah.
Okay.
But I'm assuming it went so far into her eye it like pierced her brain or something. Because like she was dead instantaneously. So I'm assuming it went right in there.
Oh, okay.
It was just what I thought.
Okay. Anyway, so she crawls over to Lauren and she's like, we are not safe here in the middle of this floor next to this person. And so she's like trying to get Lauren up and drag her to like a pillar where they could sort of like hang onto it. Like the way I thought of it, it was like they were being swept away, but not by a wave, just by people. Mm-hmm. So they were trying to get to this pillar so that they could hold on to it to like anchor themselves in this mob of people. And, like, Lauren is obviously in shock. And she's like, oh, but Defina. Like, I need to get to Defina. I can't leave Defina. And Poppy's like, let's go.
Sorry, you're leaving Defina.
Anyway, so she is essentially, like, propping her up with with her arm and, like, dragging her. And then all of a sudden the girl goes, like, Lauren goes limp. And Poppy feels something like warm spray the side of her face, and then she looks over and she's been shot in the head with an arrow.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay, well, I guess you are also dead. And then like just sort of like lays her down and lets her go. Commander Jensen finds her now, so that's I guess Hawke's commanding officer. Like he's the commander of the Rise.
Of the Rise, yeah, I think that's what it is.
So he finds her and he's like, come on, we gotta go. And she's like, not without Tawny and Vikter. And he's like, let's go.
Yeah.
And then magically Tawny and Vikter show up.
Convenient, I suppose.
And then Lord Mazeen is there and not injured.
Of course.
And like the Duchess is like a little ways away and she's surrounded by her guards. Apparently, then they see that there are dozens of people standing at the entrances, and they're wearing, like, wolf-style masks. I think, did we mention Wolven before? I think you did.
I did, yeah. They're like, Wolven are very close. Yeah, they're very close with Atlanteans, but they're all extinct, allegedly.
Right. Yeah. So, they're all wearing, like, these Wolven-style masks. And Poppy immediately is like, those are dissenters. And apparently they were all dressed in a way that, like, she could tell that they had been at the Rite all night and had just been disguised. And now they're putting on their masks and showing who they are.
Eee. Where were they hiding the masks?
I don't know, but at the same time, it's genius.
It is.
On their part, it is so smart.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not condoning their actions.
Just funny.
I don't think it was fair of them to murder all the people there. I'm just saying. It's very smart strategy.
Yeah, you're right.
Anyway, so they escape the room. I don't know how. They do.
Yeah.
And originally, Poppy feels bad, like, leaving all the commoners and the regular people in there while they escape. And she's like, it's going to be a massacre. Like, all those people are going to die. And the Duchess is like, no, the royals will take care of them. I don't know who the royals are.
They're just regular ascendeds.
Okay, well, apparently they're going to take care of them. And Poppy's like, confused, because the ascended don't fight.
Yeah. Even though they should. They're like, I don't know why. She even says it a few times. She's like, they're faster and stronger, but they do nothing.
Yeah.
Good.
Anyway, so they close the doors, essentially, like, closing all of the dissenters and still all the commoners. They all are all locked in there. And there was a whole bunch of noise and screaming, and all of a sudden the screaming stops. Which I don't 100% get. But again, it is what it is.
Yeah.
The castle is totally surrounded, so the Duchess is like, we'll hide in this room. So they just, like, go into a regular, like, greeting room, like a room off of the hall. And Poppy and Vikter are both like, this is stupid. Like, they're gonna come in here and find us. And they're like, no, we're fine. They won't get us. And Vikter tells Poppy, he's like, people are gonna break in that room, get your dagger out, and fight.
Yeah.
And of course, very soon after that little conversation, they're starting to break down the door.
Of course.
So it literally is the Duchess and Tawny, Vikter, Poppy, Lord Mazeen, and a bunch of the Queen's guards. All in there. The dissenters obviously break in because it's a door.
Yeah.
And Poppy and Vikter attack. And she fights and kills them. And, like, a few, like, they keep coming. But she does a really good job. She, like, chops off heads and stabs people in the spinal cord. Like, she does a great job. Something interesting, though, is one of the dissenters sort of get one up on her and is about to swing and hit her. And the Duchess yells out, "She's the maiden she's chosen," which makes the dissenter pause.
Yeah.
Which I wonder what that's about. Yeah. Like, I wonder. Poppy was confused by it, and I'm confused by it. Anyway, so it gives Poppy the time, then, to attack and kill.
Mm-hmm. Which
because
kind of sucks that she's killing the person that just hesitated to kill her. But, like, yeah. What else is she supposed to do? This person is going to kill the Duchess. It's going to kill everybody else. Well,
so. And she doesn't really know that they don't want to kill her, if that makes sense. Like, yeah. And, well, we don't really know that they don't want to kill her. But, like, yeah, from this interaction, it seems like maybe they don't want to kill her. Mm-hmm. So, but she doesn't know that. So, like,
yeah,
you know. So the battle is over for the moment, and Vikter tells her that he's proud of her for fighting. They go to leave the room. Like, Poppy's like, "I am not staying here.
This is like, dumb.
This is dumb
shit."
They don't want to be sitting ducks. So as they're leaving, one of the wounded dissenters that somebody did not kill stands up and, like, throws, I don't know if he throws the sword or if he throws a dagger or if he swings the sword and is close enough to, like, but I
just assumed he was behind him and just went bam.
Oh, maybe.
But all I can think of is Gallivant, where Sid throws the sword to the Gallivant.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
Anyway, so yeah, it hits Vikter, and it is a fatal blow.
Yeah.
And Poppy is cradling him and begging him not to go and telling him he'll be fine, and all he's doing is asking for forgiveness because he didn't protect her. And she's trying to say, "No, you did protect me," when, like, we can be honest, no, he fucking didn't.
No.
But I digress. Anyway, so she's like, Hawke finally shows up.
2 minutes too late. Jesus. Right? Was he just, like, waiting there until shit went to hell and then he was like, "Oh, show up now"?
It'd be interesting, wouldn't it, if that was actually what happened?
Yeah.
But he said he was, like, fighting elsewhere.
Yeah.
He kills the dissenter that killed Vikter. And then he approaches Poppy and he kneels with her. Like, she's, like, on the floor cradling Vikter. And she's, like, begging Vikter to stay and begging Hawke to do something. But, you know, Vikter is just, like, begging her for forgiveness. And she's like, "I forgive you, I forgive you." Oh, he keeps saying, "Forgive me." He says, like, "Forgive me, I failed you." And then he dies. And Hawke, she's, like, in shock, and Hawke puts his hand over hers, and he sort of says, like, "I'm sorry," or, like, he's gone, or something to that effect. And Lord Mazeen, the dum-dum, decides that he has to say something, because he doesn't know when to shut up.
Yep.
He says something stupid, that it looks like the maiden has crossed a line with her royal guard. And obviously, her lessons weren't effective. So, like, super dum-dum. Mm-hmm. And Poppy just, like, looks at this guy, like, as her not father, but might as well be her father figure, and sees that he is, like, not a shred of clothing out of place, barely a speck of blood on him, and she just snaps. and gets Vikter's sword and starts to attack him. And, like, she says that when she makes the first swing, he's super fast, but he also wasn't expecting it. So he's got this, like, cocky grin on his face because he's like, oh, I can move out of the way because I'm super fast and you're going to attack me and it's not going to do anything. But she does actually get him. She cut his arm off.
Good for her.
I know, at the elbow.
Ugh.
Yeah. Then she cut off his other arm, she cut off his hand. Because she remembers it was the hand that he used to hold her hand down with. So she cut that off.
Which is good.
And then good for her, man. And then the pièce de résistance, she cuts his head off. But she let him suffer a little bit first by cutting off some appendages.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's in this sort of a rage. Like, she's like, ah! And Hawke sort of grabs her from behind, and he's like, Poppy, stop. Poppy, stop. And she's like, ah! Like, she's not stopping. She's in this, like, rage spiral, and he's trying to get her to stop, and she can't, and she doesn't. So all of a sudden, like, he knocks her out some way, and then she falls. What she says, she falls into nothingness.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. But, like, okay, here's my problem.
Okay.
I'm sad for her that Vikter has died.
Yes.
I don't like him.
No.
But I'm still sad that she is sad. My issue is that I feel like he didn't have enough time to process her life and her turmoil and how terrible he's been, essentially, not that he's been purposefully treating her badly, but the fact that he's gone along with everything as long as he has.
Yeah.
To me, like, I feel like he needed time to redeem himself and to come to terms with how crappy her life is. And I feel like he didn't get to do that. So I feel like her big speech at him and how awful everything is, and he didn't have time to process it, therefore realize, oh shit, she's right, before he died. So I am unsatisfied.
Yeah, but I think he always knew. There was just, like, he felt there's nothing he could do about it, so he didn't bother pushing back. Like, I feel like not so much about how shitty her life is, but, like, about the abuse and, like, people mistreating her. I think that's what he was apologizing for. I don't think he did process how shitty her life also was. I think he was mostly just apologizing for not protecting her from being abused.
Which is fine.
It's not the closure you want.
No, it's not. Yeah. Like, I want him to have had that. I wanted him, I guess I wanted redemption for him.
Yeah.
I wanted him to prove that he actually did care for Poppy the way he said he did.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I got that, and so I'm annoyed that he's dead. I'm not
That's fair.
So.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say on that, and realistically, we don't get a whole lot, like, he's dead now, so.
That's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it.
So it's been a week and a half since Vikter died, and Poppy is too angry to cry. She's been basically drugged and sleeping, and it's been her choice ever since Vikter died, except for, like, I think 4 days ago she said Hawke took away the sleeping medicine so that she couldn't just go back to sleep and pretend nothing is happening. She did miss Vikter's funeral, which she's sad about, but she says, like, there were hundreds of funerals, like, so many people died during this attack. She also says, like, Hawke apparently knocked her out with a pressure point, and that's the only reason she stopped attacking the Lord. Sorry, that just sounds funny. That's the only reason she stopped attacking the Lord. The Lord, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus. Unrelated Jesus. Yes. She also says apparently like the dissenters had lit some of the fancier homes in Macedonia on fire to like draw the guards away from the castle, which is why everyone was so surprised. And it's also where Hawke was, because when he showed up, he apparently had soot on him, which I don't even remember her saying, but whatever.
Woo! Soot. Just reminds me of, no, listen, I'm sorry.
I don't get it.
Did you not see Mary Poppins?
The
original movie.
I've seen it, yes.
With Dick Van Dyke. He's always covered in soot.
Yes, because he's the chimney sweep.
Yeah, he was peak, like, he was
Fit.
boyfriend. Like, well, I don't, like, yeah, sure, he was a decent looking man, but, like, more, just the way he treated Mary Poppins was lovely.
Yeah, he's peak boyfriend material. I gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe am I the only person that, oh god.
No. I just haven't seen
myself.
I just haven't seen Mary Poppins in a very long time and never would have been like soot Mary Poppins. Like that leap was impressive. Like I haven't seen leaps that good in gymnastics.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, that's just how my brain works, I guess.
I liked it.
It's a problem.
No, it's good. I get what you're saying. I do. Now, I needed it explained though. Yeah.
Fine. It's okay.
Perfect. Poppy says that none of the dissenters were taken alive, so they don't even know why they like actually attacked that night. And you're like, why did nobody think to take someone alive?
Take one. Just one. You only need to take one alive.
Yeah. And like they were clearly organized. They had masks. Like it wasn't it just seems one person.
Yeah. I wonder how many there were. Like
Yeah.
I feel like there must have been a whole lot.
Yeah.
For them to have stormed, like, the castle and, like, been outside the castle, like, so they couldn't escape and swarmed in the Great Hall. There had to have been a whole lot of them.
I know. And I'm thinking, like, maybe they were just so many individual battles and everyone just killed everybody. And then they were, like, at the end of it, they were like, nobody's left alive. Oops.
Whoopsie-daisy.
We should have probably kept someone alive. Poppy then says that like 2 nights ago, she tried to leave to go see Agnes because she thinks that Agnes had to have known that something was going to happen. Like she kind of warned her, but she didn't really. And she wanted to go and talk to her and she wanted to kill some dissenters. But she only got to the grove before Hawke caught up with her and like brought her back. Which is kind of impressive that she even got that far.
Yeah. I feel like he probably let her get that far, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Either that or he just wasn't around when she left.
Yeah. Did
they like barricade the servant passage so that she couldn't use it anymore after that?
Yes, after this time that she left, yeah. Because she left through the servant's passage, which makes sense. It probably should be barricaded.
Yeah.
Dissenters stormed the castles. Singular castle. So this day that is the present, because she was just talking about the past so much in her head. Now we're back to the present. Hawke comes to her room and he just like stares at her, and eventually she asks him what he wants. And he kind of says, like, this is progress, because apparently the other times he's come to see her, she didn't even bother to speak to him. Yeah. They go back and forth a bit, and she's annoyed at the princess nickname.
Again?
Yeah, she has been a lot. But he tells her that he understands, and he's sorry about Vikter. And, like, even if they argued right before he died, Hawke says that, like, he respected him, and he takes some of the blame for Vikter's death. Which is interesting. Why would he take some of the blame?
I don't know. It's almost as if he has had a part in it.
I can't imagine.
That is so weird.
during their chat, Poppy just says 10, and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she's like, you've called me Poppy 10 times now, which is like, it's sweet, but it's also like, I can't imagine saying that out loud to somebody, saying, I've counted each time you've said my nickname because it gives me the warm and fuzzies.
Oh, dear God.
But then they actually do have a very sweet moment. He tells her it's okay to feel everything she's feeling and everything she's not feeling. And, like, she really needed to hear that. Because she doesn't feel bad for killing Lord Mazeen, which you can't blame her, but like she almost feels a bit guilty for not feeling bad. But anyway,
but like that is a big thing with grief though too, is that like a lot of people, like not a lot of people, but I feel like in public there's like a perception of how you should grieve. Mm-hmm. So like her being told that like things that you're not feeling, it's okay not to feel that way. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a validation that, like, there is no right way to grieve.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Which is true. And then they have, like, a long hug and just hold each other. And it, like, makes Poppy feel less alone. And she really did need that interaction. Then Hawke says the Duchess wants to see her. And she's like, you just stood here and said nothing for so long. And the Duchess is waiting. Like, what the fuck? She's like, she's probably going to give me my punishment for killing Lord Mazeen. And he's like, if it was a punishment, I wouldn't bring you there. So don't worry about that. Which is like, yeah, like he actually would do something, which is the bare minimum, but wasn't being met. It's like the bar is on the floor and Vikter dug underneath it. So they go to see the Duchess, and she says that the Queen has finally like summoned Poppy to come to the capital, which isn't surprising. Like, all this shit's been happening. Finally, the Queen's like, shit, you gotta get here so that you don't get kidnapped. And she's leaving the next morning. And then Poppy asks the Duchess about her punishment. And everybody else is just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, she can see Hawke look at her.
Bring that up?
Yeah. Like, you got away with it. Shut up.
Yeah.
But the Duchess asks if she thinks she should be punished. And Poppy says she can't answer that. And the Duchess just says that she knows Poppy had her reasons and, like, wants to leave it at that. So Poppy kind of realizes, like, the Duchess definitely knew about what was happening. And she also thinks, like, if they were doing that to the Chosen, the Maiden, like, what were they actually doing to the Duchess? Like, chances are she was being abused too.
Yeah.
Which is
awful. She also says too, like, that she knew the Lord Mazeen's first name, Bran or something like that. She says, I knew him for a really long time, and I knew, she was like, I thought he'd be smart enough to leave you alone, but I guess he wasn't.
Yeah.
So she was like, I'm not going to grieve over his death.
Yeah. Or the Duke's death. And I'm just like, whoa, shook. Like, this is...
I low-key love it. I'm like, yes, bitch, get it.
Yeah. I'm like, I hope that she stays the Duchess here and doesn't have to take another husband or whatever.
Yeah.
Seeing the Duchess, though, makes Poppy think about how the Duke was murdered with the same cane that he used on her. And she's like, it can't be a coincidence. But that's all we get of that. Yes, what could it be? Poppy is, I guess, getting ready to leave. And she's having an argument with Hawke because she wants to take Tawny with them. And Hawke refuses to take her because it's just an extra person and they just don't have the, like, manpower to take care of two young girls outside of the Rise. And Tawny even tells Poppy that she doesn't want to go because she is worried about the journey. But Poppy really takes that as, like, being rejected by Tawny. Mm-hmm. And she also realizes that a lot of the reason she wants Tawny to go is because she doesn't want to leave everything that she's familiar with, which does make sense. And Tani does try to reassure her that, like, it isn't about Poppy. It's that, like, it doesn't make sense for her to go now, and she is worried that she would get injured in the journey. Which, after we read the journey, she probably would have fucking died, to be honest. So I'm glad she didn't go.
Yeah.
The next day, they're, like, getting their shit together and leaving, and Poppy is outside, and she's veilless. Because they basically say, like, if she was wearing a veil, everybody would know it was her, but just being a girl on a horse with no veil, she's just a regular person, probably. No one will know it's her.
Which I actually think is wild that that the Duchess allowed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Hawke is like, you're not wearing a veil. Like, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Like, don't even pack it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, you would think the Duchess would be like, no, she has to wear a veil.
Yeah. I feel like the Duchess just doesn't give a fuck about a lot anymore.
She's like, yes, I'm free.
Basically. It's what it seems like. She's like, do whatever you want. I don't give a fuck. You're the queen's problem now.
Yeah. Yes. Valid.
So Hawke shows up and he's apparently in commoner's clothes, and Poppy is like, shit, he's hot. Which, that's the only reason I'd want this to be made into a movie or a show, is to, like, see Hawke.
Yeah, but what if they, like, cast someone crappy?
I know, but that's everything. That's my worry of everything.
Yeah.
Poppy tells Hawke she doesn't know how to ride a horse, so Hawke is like, well, this is going to be intriguing and torturous. And she's like, what do you mean? And then, like, she gives it a little while on the horse, and she's like, ah, yes, we're, like, stuck to each other's bodies.
Woo!
Yeah, it's like one bed, but one horse. I think I've talked about this before on this podcast.
You do love the one bed trope.
And I do love the one horse trope.
But, like, also, and this is, like, people like riding horses.
Yes.
I'm trying to say it without saying it, because, like, but
it can feel good.
People with vaginas
can have pleasurable experience
riding a horse.
Yes.
So that, coupled with, like, rubbing up against, like, super hot person, like, she's in for a time, I think.
She's in for a treat? Torturous? We'll see.
Well, I feel like they could very, like, quietly and deftly just, like, I don't know, wrap a blanket, whip it out.
I feel like the logistics of having sex on a horse would be really hard to, like...
But I feel like you could just let the horse do the work. Like, the horse is naturally moving, so you're naturally bobbing anyway.
Yeah, but,
so
like...
all you gotta do is just slip it in there, and the movement will naturally... I don't know.
Yeah, I guess
I've never done this. Like, this has never happened to me. I feel like I need to put that out there.
My biggest worry is, like, what if, like, you just crack his dick off? Because the horse, like, jolts somewhere or something.
Yeah, that's a problem. Well, I guess that's a risk he has to be willing to take.
It's true. He true. Oh, God. Okay. God. Yeah. Hawke also gives her back the bloodstone dagger that she lost during the fight when Vikter died. And she says that, like, Vikter got it for her on her 16th birthday. And she's really happy to get it back now. And obviously, like, a bloodstone is apparently pretty rare, but you need it to kill Craven. So, like, good for her to have a weapon, for sure.
Yeah.
She reads. She meets the rest of the travel group, and one is Kieran, and apparently he came to Macedonia with Hawke, so he's used to being outside of the Rise as well. Mm-hmm. And two of the guards that are there, she played cards against at the Red Pearl, like, in the beginning of the book. And then there's, like, I don't know, like, two huntsmen, a few other guards. I don't know. They're not as important.
No.
So after being on the horse for hours, she's like had no choice but to lean back into Hawke because she like tried to stand up like super prim and proper and not be inappropriate, but like you can't on a horse for that long. And he apparently has his hand on her hip, which she finds like super intimate, but like she's still wearing clothes. So
yeah,
you know. They slow down a bit and are looking around, and they tell her that they're looking for barats, which are apparently animals the size of a boar, but I envision them as rats.
Okay.
I don't know why. I feel like they're rats, but they're the size of a boar. Like Princess Bride.
Yeah, rodents of unusual size.
Yes, exactly. That's what I think. But it's also funny because I've read this book before, and this time while I was reading it, like she is clearly afraid of them, and Hawke and another guard like kind of tease her a bit about it. And for some reason in my brain, I was like, oh, barats aren't real. I don't know why. They are real. They're 100% real. They come up later. But in my brain, I was like, oh, they're teasing her about it because they're not actually real.
Okay.
But they're 100% real. They literally come up next week. I don't know why I thought they weren't. Or is it later this week? I can't remember. Anyway, Hawke asks her to grab something from his bag, and she pulls out Miss Willow's diary because he brought it with him. And she's like, what the hell? I was barely allowed to bring clothes with me, and you brought this diary. But then she admits that she like has almost finished reading it. They make it to the Blood Forest, and it's Poppy's first time here. Like on her way from the capital the first time, they took a longer route to avoid the forest, but this time like they're in a hurry to get to the capital, so they're going through it, and I guess Hawke has already gone through it, so he's familiar. And the trees are blood red, and when she looks down at the ground, it's covered in worn bones, and it's not even just animals, there's human bones too. So that's something.
Yay!
It's not ominous at all.
No, let's dive right into it.
Yeah. It's dark inside the forest, but she says that the ground isn't covered in leaves. It's just grass, which is really odd. Like in a forest, when you go in the forest, there's leaves everywhere all the time because they fall out of trees. So just having grass on the ground is odd. And especially since like once they're in there, sun doesn't get through the leaves. So like how is the grass even growing? They do obviously have to spend a night in the forest, and Poppy's like never felt so cold in her life. And Hawke comes over and realizes like she's still awake and struggling to get to sleep, and that she's also freezing. So he lies down behind her to like help warm her up.
Woo!
But it's like completely platonic at first. Like he's like, he's behind her. He has his arm over her. His hand is even not touching her because he wants to be proper. And she's just like, you can't do this. This is a terrible plan. You're not allowed to do this. And you're like, just let him warm you up. It's fine. But he also argues like if she has a nightmare and starts screaming, she'll like alert all the Craven to their location. So he's like, it's best if I'm close to you anyway. She can't get to sleep, so they chat, and most of their chat is literally about how inappropriate him holding her is. But he argues, and he's like, well, you can't be expected to wait until you're married to a terrible royal you're gonna hate to like be held by a man kind of thing. Yeah. And you're like, well, she's supposed to, I guess. She kind of has a bit of a like crisis in her head, and it's like, I think it's like she's on her way to the queen to ascend, and she's like, she should probably stop doing bad, and I'm putting that in quotes, like bad things now. Like if she doesn't want to be rejected by the gods, then she should probably not be doing anything bad anymore. But that wouldn't be a very good story, would it? She tells Hawke she thinks that her brother is unhappy. He apparently doesn't talk about his wife, and her parents were so in love that she can't imagine him or her marrying without love. But obviously, once you ascend, you're like, your partner is chosen for you. You don't get to pick.
Yeah.
But we do get a bit more information about her father. He was apparently a wealthy firstborn, but he wasn't chosen to ascend. Which I don't understand.
The ascension thing, like, I don't get it.
I don't either. I'm assuming, like, it's just if you have connections, if you're, like... Yeah, if you have connections, I assume that's the only way you're chosen to ascend, but I don't actually know. But her parents apparently first met at the castle, and it was love at first sight, and she's, like, tells Hawke that it sounds kind of silly, but, like, they literally saw each other and immediately fell in love. And Hawke tells her he doesn't think love at first sight is silly. So then she's like, I wonder if he's ever felt that before.
No.
I wonder what that could mean.
I don't know.
And then he asks her if she went to the Red Pearl looking for love. And she says, that's not why you go to the Red Pearl. And she says she went there to live and to experience. And he says that he understands. He says she was chosen. And then, I quote, apparently she was born in the shroud of the gods, protected even inside the womb, veiled from birth. So I don't really know what that means. Like, veiled from birth. I don't understand what this means. I'm like, they couldn't see her when they did an ultrasound.
I think you're assuming they have ultrasounds.
I'm not actually, but I just don't understand what else it could be.
Because, like, she obviously also wasn't veiled from birth either. Like, she didn't have a veil on as soon as she was born.
Yeah.
That was only after the Craven attack and after everything that happened with her parents. Right?
Yeah. So I don't really understand what that means. And then it also, I'm like, is it like a prophecy or something? Like, anyway, maybe we'll figure it out at some point. She does also tell Hawke that she's terrified about the ascension and everything after. Because, like, she knows she'll be given a husband, basically, and he'll probably find her ugly because the ascended are so... like, beauty is such a high standard with them. And Hawke calls the Duke a cunt for, like, making her feel like she's not beautiful. Which is fair. He is a very terrible person. And Hawke also agrees, like, the ascension does seem scary. Like, there's so much secrecy around it. Like, how, like, of course people are going to be afraid. Like, what even happens? And... she just says, like, you meet the gods, and that is how you ascend. So you're, like, in the presence of the gods, and that is the ascension. And Hawke tells her she was right when she said the ascension sounds similar to, like, what the Atlanteans did to create Craven. Because, like, what happens to a body that can stop it from aging and from... like, normal mortal sicknesses. So it is very odd that they can just do that. But Poppy's like, I guess if you're in the presence of the gods, that, like, changes you.
Yeah.
Because that's what she was taught. Poppy knows she should sleep, but Hawke tells her she's too tense, but he bets he can relax her enough so she feels like she's sleeping on a cloud basking in the sun. What's gonna happen? So he starts by, like, rubbing her upper belly over her sweater and, like, gets close to her under boobs, and his hand starts to go lower over her pants. Don't worry.
Don't you worry.
And she's worried the guards are gonna hear, which is super fair. Like, half the guards are asleep and half of them are patrolling. Obviously someone's gonna hear. I don't know what they're doing. It's very intense. But she basically, like, talks herself past her fears and lets herself enjoy it. But there's also some dirty talk from Hawke. And, like, it's not bad dirty talk, but it does seem very intense for somebody who has never been touched. Like, he tells her she's definitely soft, wet, and ready for him. And he says... just wait. He says if he could, he would get inside of her, taste her, and she's probably as sweet as honeydew. And he says, I know, I can't handle that. I know it's a thing, but I can't.
It's like the watermelon sugar song.
I know. I wonder if he read this book. Hawke also says if any part of him gets inside of her, every part will.
Which I don't understand.
Because he's like, he wants to actually touch her with his hand right now, but he's like, I can't, because if I put my finger inside of you, I'll have to put my dick inside of you.
Oh, I get
it. So she's rocking like back against him, and she's moaning.
Course.
She's moaning, obviously. And there's still people around, which is very intense for her first time ever being touched by anyone. Like, it's, there's people that could see this, basically. And he covers her mouth, and she, like, just comes forever, basically.
Forever?
Forever. She is very relaxed after that, and she kind of feels like it isn't fair that she gave him nothing when he relaxed her, which I hate. I'm like, just take that thought and throw it the fuck away. Yeah. But she can't even... Yeah.
A lot of times it's opposite, not reciprocated. Like,
yes.
A lot of times the dude gets his, but the girl doesn't get hers, so...
But the dude doesn't feel bad.
No.
So I don't think she should feel bad.
No.
But she's also just so relaxed that she can't even say anything, and she just falls asleep, and she sleeps really well through the night. The next morning, she wakes up because she hears Hawke and Kieran talking about, like, the travel plans for the day. And Kieran also tells Hawke he has noticed what's happening and to remember his task. So I would be embarrassed by that.
Yeah.
Because clearly Kieran noticed what happened last night. But anyway, Poppy just thinks to herself that she doesn't regret what happened, but she's worried that, like, Hawke will, especially after Kieran just had that conversation with him. Because, like, he's a guard. He shouldn't be doing this. But Hawke, like, brushes her cheek to wake her up, and they, like, joke a little, and there's still a lot of sexual tension there, so we think she's fine. Hawke thanks her for last night, and she says she feels like she should be the one thanking him, but he says, like, thank you for trusting him, and he's honored that she would take the risk with him, which is, like,
aww.
It's sweet-ish. It is sweet, yes. She uses her gift to feel his sadness, but she also feels confusion and, like, a bit of conflict, which is exactly how she feels, so, like, it makes sense to her. Kieran looks at them disapprovingly, but Hawke doesn't shy away from her, which is almost kind of harder for Poppy, because she kind of thinks, like, clearly they can't have a future together past this trip, so, like, it would almost be better if they went back to being the maiden and a guard than to actually keep getting closer. Along the route, they're still in the Blood Forest, Poppy notices rocks that are in formations as if they were put there by people. And I don't know if we ever hear anything else about this, ever.
Nope.
Because I don't understand it.
Not as far as I know.
Not in this book, at least. Maybe it'll come up in a different book. But I just was like, that's interesting to note and never circle back to. The horses spook, and then a Barat slams into one of the guards' horses and knocks him off. And Kieran ends up, like, hitting the Brat with an arrow. And then a whole horde of Barats run by, and none of them attack the horses or them. They just, like, run through them to get away. So clearly they're running from something. And then Poppy sees the mist, and a Craven grabs the guard that had, like, was off of his horse before he can get back on his horse and attacks him. And there are so many Craven that they know they can't run, so they all just, like, jump off their horses and get their swords and shit and start fighting. Poppy obviously has her dagger, and she ends up killing 2 Craven and then meets Hawke's eyes. And he says that, like, her killing Craven is super sexy. He's such a horn dog. He's horny all the time.
Yeah.
Poppy kind of thinks like her dagger's effective, but like she obviously needs to be close range because it's only short. So it's not the best thing to use when fighting Craven. But Hawke tosses her like the fallen guard's sword, which was also bloodstone. So she ends up being able to use that for a bit. But she also trips over a root, and another guard, Eric, has to tackle a Craven that was like about to get her. And he ends up in the mist. And Poppy... Yeah, that doesn't seem good. Poppy starts to panic a bit because it's like she has a bit of a flashback to when her parents died, but she is able to get herself under control. And like the fog starts to retreat and Eric becomes visible again. One guard, obviously the first one, and a huntsman died in the attack, and she realizes Eric is injured and bleeding out from a stomach wound, and he's not gonna make it. Eric asks if she's okay, because clearly, like, the only thing he cared about was keeping the maiden from dying. Safe. Yeah, because that's his job. So she walks over to him and thanks him for saving her life. And she takes his hand and she like takes his pain away to like because he's dying and because he saved her life. She doesn't want him to be in pain right now. So she thinks of beaches and she thinks of Hawke and she pushes all of that into Eric. And
but like, can I just he was attacked by and he was injured by a Craven? Are we not worried he's gonna turn into one now?
With claws. Like the Craven got him with his claws instead of his teeth. You have to get Craven teeth.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, the Craven like ripped his insides out with his claws. Yeah.
Great.
So no, I don't think he's gonna turn.
Okay.
That'd be so bad. He just turns and kills the maiden. Yeah, so she's taken his pain away, but Philip and Hawke are like watching, and Eric is basically like, oh my god, I don't feel any pain anymore. He's like, I know I'm dying, but I feel great. So clearly they're gonna notice something is happening.
Yeah.
Eric also tells her he recognizes her from playing cards, and they have a bit of a sweet moment together before Eric then calls out to his mother and dies. So Poppy obviously is like, oh, before he died he saw his mother, which is sweet. And yeah. Hawke then looks at her and says that she did something, and then Phillips, the other guard, says he's heard rumors but didn't believe them, and that she has the touch.
Ooh.
And that's all we really get into it there. They, I guess, ride again, and they get to New Haven, and the people in the town, like, all come out to watch as they arrive, and Hawke explains, like, this town doesn't get many visitors. And Kieran says, it's an exciting day. And Poppy's like, it seems like there's royalty here based on how all of these people are acting and coming out. And Hawke snorts, and Kieran kind of, like, gives him a look, which is just a little bit of breadcrumbing.
Yeah.
They get to the castle, and a guard named Delano and one named Elijah greet Hawke and Kieran like they're old friends, and Poppy just notices that there's no Ascended around. Then Hawke tells a woman, Magda, to take Poppy to her room, and it almost looks like she's about to bow to Hawke, but then she, like, says she's super unsteady because of her pregnancy, is, like, the excuse she gives to Poppy. Poppy is a bit wary of this place, because Hawke had said he'd only been here once, but people know him, obviously the two people that came to the door, and he's ordering people around, and, like, she hasn't seen any Ascended, but when she asks Magda, she says that the Lord is out hunting with the men, so, like, that's where the Ascended is. So that kind of, like, placates her. Poppy eats and takes her bath, and then Hawke knocks on her door and just walks into her room. She kind of mentions that, like, this place seems a bit odd, but he kind of just avoids it and changes the subject, and he asks her about Eric. And she tells him about the rumors that call her the child of a god because of the gift. Mm-hmm. And she explains that she isn't allowed to use it or talk about it until she is found worthy. Which obviously she still has used it.
Yeah. Obviously.
And, yeah.
He's seen her use it.
Exactly. And she says that, like, it first started, she could just feel pain, and now she kind of feels other things too. It's, like, kind of developing. And she doesn't need to touch people to feel feelings. So she has to kind of have, like, a constant wall up to keep them out unless she wants to let them in. And she does tell him also, just like a tidbit, that physical pain is warm, but mental pain feels worse. It's ice cold, which is just interesting. He asks if she's sensed his feelings before, and she says, like, she has, and she's felt his deep grief and sorrow, which kind of, like, shocks him. I don't know what he thought she was gonna say, but I guess he didn't think that that's what he, like, projected feelings-wise. And then he guesses that she's taken his pain away twice, and he's right. Like, she has done it twice, and we've seen it. And he said the first time she did it, it actually lasted quite a while, and he slept really well. And he felt...
Which is nice, because I think her what she was expecting to... The way she expected him to react is different than how he actually reacted.
Yes.
If that makes sense?
It does, yeah. She tells him she's also helped the cursed with Vikter, and that is why the rumors started, because she was going around and, like, helping the families who were grieving, and also helping kill anyone who was cursed.
Yeah.
Apparently she and the last maiden are the only ones that have had this ability, and her mother noticed it when she was around 3 or 4 years old. He asks her if she's using it now, and she says she tries not to use it when she's with somebody, and then she pauses, and then she finally says that she cares about. So she tells him she cares about him, which is sweet. She also tells him that she doesn't feel anything from the Ascended, and he agrees that that is weird. Like, do they just not have feelings, or do they have a block from it somehow? It's just unexpected. And then Hawke tells her she's nothing like he expected. And she says, you keep saying that, which is what I think as well. And she's like, what did you expect? But he says, he kind of avoids answering. And he says, no matter what anybody has said to her, she is more worthy than anyone he's ever met. And she deserves so much more than what she is going to get. Which is interesting. And Poppy kind of goes through an internal struggle, and she realizes that she wants to love and she wants to choose, and she feels a really strong connection with Hawke that doesn't really make sense for the amount of time they've known each other. Mm-hmm. But she knows, like, he accepts her and trusts her, and she trusts him with her life, and, like, she's, like, looking at him going through all this in her head, and he's like, you need to stop looking at me like that. Because he doesn't deserve it. And then he's like, I need to leave before something happens. But as he's walking away, she asks him if he'll stay with her tonight. And that's the end of this week.
Ah!
What a cliffhanger.
We don't get an answer.
No, we get nothing. It's just like, stay with me. Close the book till next week. Yeah. So I guess that's it for this week. If you guys want to get in touch with us, share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, you can email us at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com. And be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at coffeeandcoread.
So next week we will be finishing From Blood and Ash already.
I know.
Chapters 33 to the end /41. So make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our little chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you find content. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on the next page.